I just wondered how you all began working together, because you've been working together for about 10 years, I believe.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so the short version. Matt and I met at our first job out in LA, both working at New Line Cinema. These two met at an acting class.
Yep.
We came together one summer to make a project called The Birthday Party, an interactive adventure that was a little digital short. And we've been working together literally every day since.
Yep.
And what was it about Ready or Not, the screenplay, that made you each want to bring it to the big screen?
Honestly, this is a great jump off of that because it was similar to the tone that we did with The Birthday Party, our very first project. It combined elements of horror and comedy in a way like no other project that we've read. So we wanted to go out and get it aggressively and get it made.
And I was terrified and laughing a lot during the movie. Why do you think comedy and horror do go so well together?
Because they're both the tension reliever. If you're scared, it's easier to laugh. If you've been laughing and then you're surprised, you get scared. And they hit on the same emotional kind of like pressure points. Same thing with like genuine emotion. For us, those are the three keys: like good drama, a good laugh, a good scare. And with this script that Guy and Ryan wrote, we were able to kind of put those all into one.
And I imagine you've sat with an audience watching it. Is it quite fun to see like what they're laughing at and what they're kind of screaming at?
Yeah, it's a thrill.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I think it's always it's different for every screening, but I think we're always amazed at what people find funny and scary, and I think we get more of a response than we ever hoped for. We're so grateful.
There's some really subtle things that we find really funny, but we know maybe most people won't. And when you hear, even if it's just a couple people in a crowd get those moments, we go, oh
so
my God,
satisfying.
this is the best.
Yeah, that was the most terrifying thing about like the initial test screenings that the studio does, because they go in blind. So the audience just comes in blind and they're like, okay, here's the movie. And then there are little parts at the beginning where they don't know if they can laugh yet or not. And once they figure out that, yes, you can laugh and yes, you can be scared, then the audience has a lot more fun with it.
Yeah.
Yes, because there was a girl at the end of my row who was laughing a lot at one very gory moment, and I was sort of judging her and thinking, why are you laughing at that?
Right.
It's a terrible thing. But then something similar happened later and I was laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was judging you.
Yeah, exactly, probably. And you've assembled a brilliant cast for the film, and at the centre of it is Samara Weaving, obviously. Why did you feel that she was the right choice for the role as Grace?
She just had everything we wanted for Grace, and it's her character as a human. She's a great, fantastic actress, but she also has at her core this like really strong toughness, but she also has a vulnerability, and she's so, I mean, honesty is a word that we use. Like everything she does has like, it just rings of honesty. And that's something that when you're going on this journey through this crazy, ridiculous, absurd situation, to have someone like that you just want to root for and you can identify with, it's just all we could have hoped for.
Right.
Yeah,
she totally embodied that rebellious punk rock vibe
Yeah.
we wanted going up against the 1%. And we knew it from the start.
She also just naturally pivots from one tone to the other.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
in one of the most intense emotional moments, you'll find yourself suddenly laughing, and then she can scream and run, and she does terror so well. The pivot between those is like,
It's because she's so
just
honest. It's like
absolutely
grounding
seamless.
her
Yeah.
character. It's that it never feels outside of like the realm of possibility.
And I love the costume as well, and the way that kind of gets dirtied and bloodied and kind of ripped. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and maybe in the set as well, because they're both kind of separate characters, I think, other characters in the movie, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Visually, in so many ways, what we hoped to achieve was, starting the movie in this idyllic way, and then all of that devolves over the course of the film, from the way the set looks, the way the camera moves, the way that her dress certainly looks. We loved that there was a real visual, tactile way to track the experience of this 8 hours from midnight until the morning, and I mean, our costume designer did just an absolutely incredible job with everybody. That's tracked for all the characters. It's certainly the wedding dress, but every character goes through this transformation of being, certainly empowered and having the best day of their life to living this terrible nightmare.
And I know you use practical effects wherever possible. I just wondered why that was your choice, and also if there was a particularly challenging sequence from that point of view.
I mean, it was our choice just because for us, there's still something at its core that if it's real, you believe it in the audience. It just makes it more relatable, more believable, and so you go with it. And so we were really hard on ourselves to be like, how can we do this as practically as possible? As far as one that was difficult, I would say...
I'm trying to think of what wasn't difficult.
Yeah,
but,
me too.
I mean, all of it is difficult. I think when you're doing anything practically, there's just
You gotta get it right.
There's so many variables. But one of the benefits to doing things practically is it gives the cast something real to interact with. There's obviously a ton of make-believe that happens in making a movie, but when the make-believe is genuinely messy and you're like actually dealing in the sort of grossness of all of that, it's not only is it really fun, but it adds a level of believability to everybody's interaction that you just don't get otherwise.
And I guess you were working with not obviously real blood, but not sort of CGI blood. There was actual kind of liquid there, and at times there is quite a bit. What was that like to control on set?
Messy.
Yeah, I think. A challenge because we were shooting in locations, 2 of which couldn't have any live blood, and then the one location that we were able to use blood in, we went hog wild.
Right.
Because you were shooting in some real old houses.
Right.
Yeah,
like historic
landmarks.
Kind of places,
And sound is obviously always a very important element in any movie, but I think particularly when you're trying to create tension and there are horror elements. Can you tell me a bit about the sound design and also some of your brilliant music choices as well for the movie?
Yeah, the entire sound team they took something that we had conceptually and brought it up to here. I mean, we were sitting with them up in Toronto for not even that long, like a week and a half. And every choice they were making, we were like, yes, this is better than we could have hoped for. And it's so key to every moment in this movie. The most subtle thing can play up here if you do it right. And then as far as the score goes, Brian Tyler did our score, and he was he blew our minds with it. And choosing those few needle drops throughout that just kind of ground the story in a world you can relate to, and also mirroring the opening song at the end in a clean romantic version, and then the dirty fucked up punk rock version was something that we kind of wanted to do from day one, essentially.
Yeah, and all the sound has to walk the same tonal tightrope, right?
Yeah.
It has to be able to go and be big and insane, but it also has to service this really grounded emotional side of things. And I think that everyone had a lot of fun exploring that because that dynamic range is so wide. We got to it's in 90 minutes. You get to do a lot sonically. It was a real fun ride.
And the film felt highly original, but I just wondered if there were any classic movies or horror movies that particularly inspired you, that you had in mind, maybe for the tone or Grace's situation.
It really runs the gamut of movies because we're definitely all film buffs. We love watching everything. But this was a nice combination of The Shining, Fargo, and Gosford Park, which are 3 that you don't usually hear go together, but it's something that we kind of wanted to do with this one.
It's also, we've always loved the Survive the Night movies, and that was like a thing, like an Adventures in Babysitting,
right.
Into the Night. I mean, all those kind of After Hours. It's we talked about those a lot too, of how do you just put a character in a thing and then push them to the limit until dawn.
Just finally, obviously in the show business and beyond, women have been sharing stories of pretty terrible things that they've been going through, and I just wondered, sort of watching this film in the era of Time's Up, I wondered how sort of conscious you were of that, of it being a sort of woman's survival story.
Yeah, I think absolutely conscious of it. I would also say that from the earliest drafts of the script when we were involved, one of the things that we loved about it is that it's just the story about an outsider who's entering this insane world, and the fact that we were able to get Sam Weaving involved, and that she's such a badass from the start, and that really, she so honestly carries the film from one moment to the next, and ultimately, it is a story about this woman overcoming impossible odds, and that for us is that just feels good. That's a really fun, satisfying movie to watch, and also, a fun story to tell.
And leaning on Samara a lot to really help make sure that the character never made a false choice, never felt like it was being pushed in a way that would not be authentic. And she really helped guide that character in a way that I think is beyond what we could have done with it on our own.
Matt, Tyler, Chad, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,